My name is Ragnhild Cederlund. I'm Associate Professor here at Lund University at the Occupational Therapy and Occupational Science Department. I'm the moderator here for this session today, in this morning session. And I would like to welcome you all here today. I would like to say hello, especially to Southampton, and we hope you are online. Hello, Southampton. I hope that you are very well this morning. It's a little bit early for you, 8:30 I think, and it's 9:30 here at Lund. I hope this is going to be a very fantastic day today with you students interacting with each other. I know that the students here in Sweden, they can speak English very well, but perhaps not very well, and they are not English. Swedish is our first language. So I hope that it's going to be a very interesting discussion between you students from Southampton and from Lund, but I hope that you will speak slowly, and if you don't understand, please ask a question, and I hope it's going to be fun. I hope you're going to have a good interaction with each other and perhaps become friends for a long time to come. And before we start, I would like to tell you a little bit about this fantastic collaboration that we have with the University of Southampton. It all started, I think, 2012, and I think I have told this story before. But I would like to say to you students here that we started 2012, but the first meeting we had with Southampton was in the autumn of 2013. And we all, a whole class went to Southampton. We had this first very fantastic international joint event between these two universities. And then we've had collaborations further on, and we also had a meeting in the autumn of 2014. But we are still working very hard for collaborations in the spring for students, especially in Sweden, as we take in students every half year. And in Southampton, you take in students just once a year. That's a little bit of a problem that we would like to solve and make this week for coming students, for you, of course, but for coming students to make this week an international week. That will use webinars that you will do today. You will do a lot of discussions and presentations on the net, or on the web. Webinar, I think it's called. The theme today is, and of course I'm not sure. Lisa, please help me. What is the theme today?
It's about culture and identity,
okay.
and health and well-being.
Culture, identity, health and well-being, and of course occupation or activities or daily living. And something that Lisa here wanted me to say is that it's very important for you to be able to discuss cultural differences and similarities. I think that when students have met before, they said that there are not so many differences between our countries, but I think there are, and maybe there are not. But that's an interesting point to discuss with each other, I think, and also to discuss health and well-being. For students here in Lund, they are in these elderly calls, and I think you in Southampton are in okay, what is it called now, Lisa? Developing areas, or, well, possible areas for students and occupational therapists to work in for the future. I can't really remember the name now. You see, I'm a little bit nervous too, so I hope that's okay. I think that we have two teachers in Southampton, and it's Corinne Hart-Grenier. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correct. Hello, Corinne. And we also have Juliet Truman, that we have met many times, both of you. And I say hello to you too, Juliet. And here we will have Lisa Ekstam, and we will have me, and we will also have a very important person that I would like to introduce now. And it is our associate professor and head of Department of Health Sciences, Lena-Karin Erlandsson. Last time when we had Southampton here in the autumn of 2014, we tried to make this link between our universities, and Lena-Karin, she was holding a speech or a lecture, but we couldn't really communicate then, and that's why we are sitting here in this fantastic room today, and hopefully everything is going to work absolutely perfect, and we keep fingers crossed that it will be. Otherwise, you have the teachers in Southampton that I mentioned, Corinne and Juliet, and you have Lisa and myself here to assist you, and we also have technicians and other people helping. So I think and hope that this is going to be a perfect, absolutely perfect webinar for you students. Okay. Now I come to the lecture that we will hear from our associate professor Lena-Karin Erlandsson, and she has done a lot of research, and she is very, very into what we call occupational science. She knows a lot about it, and she is really a forefigure for us here in Sweden, and I think also internationally. She has written a lot of very interesting articles about her subject, her research subject, and also focusing a lot about occupational science. So today she will have a speech or a lecture, and the name of the title of this lecture is Occupation for Health, a Scandinavian Perspective.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So good morning, and very much good morning to Southampton, and it's almost lunchtime here. I will try to give you this lecture, and it's a little bit about the model that we've developed here in Lund, but it's also, I'm also trying to connect it to the issues that is the subject for your course and the course in Southampton, which means that I will try to make some connections or have some ideas about this, about cultural differences. And I would like to say that Ragnhild said in her introduction that differences are not that big between Southampton and Sweden, and I would say that, or I would assume that is the case, that it's not that big difference. The thing is that both in Sweden and in Southampton, Lund, and in Southampton, and in Sweden and in the UK and in Europe today, we have a lot of different cultures, which means that even if we think that we come from the same nation, or we have the same nationality, we have different cultural backgrounds. And that is a thing that we need as occupational therapists, as experts on people's doing. We need to be very much aware of this. And it impacts on our different generations, our different phases or stages in life, and it impacts on what we do and how we do it. And I hope that some of the things that I will talk about here will connect to that standpoint or point of departure for this lecture. I will talk about the everyday life, or the everyday. And the everyday is what we do from morning to evening, and then most of us sleep during night. The everyday is something that we have in common, everyone that are actually walking on this earth. But the everyday is unique for every individual. In Sweden, we talk about the grey everyday. The grey everyday is like the road that we travel to get somewhere, to get to something that is more interesting. For instance, the weekend, or a holiday, or vacation that you're planning for. But the thing is that most of our lives is taking place on this gray road. And actually that's the area, or the road is where we experience health or ill health. The everyday, maybe that's the reason why we call it the grey everyday. I don't know what you call it in South Hampton, but in Sweden we call it the grey everyday.
Is that
What?
mundane? Mundane?
Mundane?
Yeah.
What's that?
Grey.
Okay, yeah, okay. So the one reason why we call it the grey everyday is that it's a secure and safe everyday. We have rhythms and structures that actually are predictable and that we rely on. There are people that suddenly or gradually find themselves in a very complex everyday life, like a traffic jam, where there are suddenly too many occupations or too many things to do, and things that are not being completed, they are started up but never finished. And when you start up a lot of occupations and not finishing them, then you get more and more cars into the traffic jam. Then on the other hand, we have other people in the society that actually don't have any occupations at all, or very few. And these people might experience ill health just as much as these people. So the amount of, or the complexity on the road or in your everyday life might impact on your health. The everyday is taken for granted, but it's on the other hand, or actually in the everyday, where you can experience the consequences of sickness or injuries. And it's in the everyday where this consequences becomes the most evident. If you're, because of illness or injury, or actually context consequences, it might be that you're moving to another place, you're forced to move to another country. It might be that you lose your work, for instance. It might be that you are a very old person that is forced to move into an elderly people's home. That's different examples of how, or reasons why your rhythm and structure in your everyday life would be affected in some way. And that's when you might experience occupational related ill health. So it's not that you, to me, occupational therapists are taking care of the consequences of the impact that your illness or an injury or contextual changes in your everyday life. We are not specifically treating the injuries or the illness. We are trying to decrease the impact of experienced ill health due to less ability in everyday life. I will use trees as a metaphor for, or one metaphor for this lecture, and trees in my perspective here are occupations, or individuals doing occupations. I've talked about the everyday, and this will be a lecture about how everyday is impacting or related to health. And you might say that it is about occupational balance. Another way or another word or concept that is well known outside occupational therapy and occupational science is work-life balance. And of course, this is related to people that are in working ages, but occupational balance or occupational imbalance might occur in any life stages. I will talk about complexity, and I thought this picture is quite fun. It's someone, the one that made this picture is probably quite frustrated by having a toddler or being home with a toddler and not being able to do what he or she is supposed to do. I think I can put, this is, or I should use this one. I was told to use this one. You can see here that this is a diagram showing making dinner, but having a toddler in the same kitchen. So in this frustrated person's mind, 2% of the time was actually regarding the cooking. Everything else is regarding all other issues that comes up when you are trying to cook and having, for instance, a toddler in the same kitchen. But this is what I'm going to talk about, and I think it's quite a fun illustration. It's about complexity. It's about a traffic jam. This is a very short period of traffic jam. And this is another fun picture that I thought I should bring as an introduction. You can see, I hope you can see this picture. It's a painting. I actually don't know who painted this one. But this woman in the center, she is, I think she's supposed to look very busy. She has children, 1 or 2 dogs, a husband, I suppose, in the background. And there's also this maid that actually is doing probably most of her household work. And she's very busy trying to write something. But this is a very early picture of a busy everyday life, I think. I don't think she looks that exhausted, but it's an illustration of how complex our doing might be. And if you experience imbalance or ill health due to the complexity or lack of a complexity in your everyday life, you might need guidance, you might need a map. And to me, that is what occupational therapists are doing. We are providing the guidance for people to reorganize and to restructure their everyday life in order to gain better health, better well-being. And this is, in Sweden at least, it's more and more recognized. The profession, the occupational therapy profession's ability to be the guide, the profession that actually have a map for people or helping people to find the map. The ability to help people find the map. But when I started as an occupational therapist, which is a very long time ago, it was not that recognized that this was actually one of the key points or one of the most important things that occupational therapists could actually do so what we did back then was that we provided technical aids and solutions to different issues in their everyday life. But today, I think that occupational therapists are able to, or our task is actually to provide guidance for people to actually to do their own change, Because if we say it's better for you to do like this, then it's not coming from the client or the individual herself or himself. And that's a big difference. So to me, occupational therapists provide all the guides. We provide tools to find the map, how to reorganize your everyday life. And one way of one tool would be to explain or teach or tell people about how their everyday life is actually organized, how it's structured. And I work a lot with client education, and in that work I depart very much from my own research that I will tell you about in a little while, but also this theoretical framework, the VALMO model, Value and Meaning in Occupations model. And the students from Sweden, you know this model very well. And I don't know if you know it in South Hampton, but I will quickly go through parts of it. This model was developed by me and my colleague Dennis Persson, mostly, and our authors of this article was Professor Mona Eklund and Professor Susanne Ivarsson. In this model, it's not that fun picture, I apologize for that, but this is what we have. In this model, we talk about 3 time perspectives. The macro perspective, that is the lifestyle, the life, the different stages in life and how our everyday life develops through life. And then we have the Meso-Perspective, that is the everyday life, the structure and complexity and organization of occupations in everyday life. And then we have the micro-perspective, that is actually the structure and organization of actions building up different occupations. I will start to talk about the macro perspective. The macro perspective is for a person in working age. For myself, for example, it is contains both work occupations, but also maintenance occupations, play occupations, recreational occupations, and sleep, of course. The small child is having, from the beginning, a lot of maintenance and sleep. And gradually, there are coming new occupations into their lives when they grow up. And from the beginning, play is the most important part of their life. And play is used to learn what is then later going to become both work occupations, but also maintenance occupations. And for the elderly person, the characteristics of elderly people's everyday life is that maintenance occupations, to take care of yourself, is taking more and more of the time. There are less work or paid work occupations, and there might be a little bit less play occupations, and there are also maybe gradually more sleep or recreation. And that is not saying that people in old age are sleeping 10, 20, 12 hours each night, but you might put in sections of sleep during the day. And the tree metaphor here is trying to illustrate how our occupations, the leaves on the tree, is increasing and decreasing. The small child is getting more and more and more occupations into their everyday life. The grown-up person in working age is very often affected by a lot of occupations, or are expected to be able to handle a lot of leaves on the tree. And then when you get older and when you get very old, you might have less occupations. And of course, if you are in the working age, the phase of working age, you're expected to have quite a lot of occupations. And if you, for instance, are coming to a new country, being new in the country, not having the social context that like you used to have, maybe you're still unemployed, then you have too few leaves on your tree than what is expected of you. We have people with long-term psychiatric problems that are very often quite low on occupations, don't have many occupations. They don't have tasks, they don't have a role in the society, which means that their trees are also with few leaves. And if you expect a tree to have a lot of leaves, or you expect the person to have a lot of occupations, then of course when you see a tree like that, you will see a tree that does not look well. And that is the same thing with people. If you meet a person that is having imbalance in his or her everyday life due to having too few or maybe sometimes no meaningful occupations, that person is most likely to experience ill health. So the life course repertoire of occupations are different in different life stages. And that means that as an occupational therapist and as a guide to try to find new ways or reorganize the everyday life for people that are experiencing imbalance, you need to know about where they are in a life course. And you also need to know what is expected of people in this life course, in the context or in the culture or in the society where they live. And it's not, you cannot assume that they expect the same things as you do, or as you assume that this is what is expected of a person in this life stage, because it might not be. And that also means that you should not be sure about that the amount of leaves on the tree is not good, or it's something that needs to be fixed. It might not. So that's important to be aware of cultural differences, societal differences for people in different life stages. But we know that people's everyday repertoire change over lifetime. I didn't have time for this to look up the time budget service in Southampton or in the UK, but I will just bring it up because we know that there are a lot of time budget studies done in Sweden, in Europe, especially in Europe. They're also measuring people's doing very effectively in Canada, for instance. And what we know is that women are very similar in the Western countries. Women's everyday doing in different countries, they do almost the same things or the same amount of occupations in different areas. We also know that the latest figures or numbers studies shows that men in Sweden are the best ones in doing maintenance occupations or taking care of home and family. This is due to the regulations that actually we have to force the men to take care of the kids for a certain number of months. But we also have the highest parental leave in Europe or in the Western countries. But this means that people in working age in Sweden, people that are living together with another adult and who are having children in preschool age, they are doing quite the same things. We know that the maintenance, taking care of home and family, has decreased both for men and women. So in Sweden we have almost stopped doing all these things. Women are studying more, we are working more in paid work, and men are still working very much and studying, not as much as women, but a lot, which means that there are both genders have stopped doing maintenance, which is interesting if we should start doing home visits, or I don't know. This is what we can expect. This is how it is, how it looks in the everyday life in Sweden at least. But there are people that every day, gradually or suddenly, experience denied access to the road they are traveling on, which means that their everyday life is getting interrupted in some way or for some reason. It might be that it suddenly becomes unsecure. The everyday is not predictable anymore. You cannot count on having a work from a paid work, for instance, or your health or your ability is decreasing and you actually don't know when and how much you are able to manage. It might be that something happens that change everything. And if you're looking at the road, what happens is that suddenly you cannot continue traveling on the road you were traveling on. You have to find a new way, a new road, a new way of traveling on your road. And the change is not, of course you can see it in a life perspective, but where you can see it or where you experience it is in your everyday life. In this picture, the Meso-Perspective. And the Meso-Perspective is, I will just see if no. In the figure or in the picture, it's the structure of occupations from morning to next morning, 24 hours. So what you need to do then is to explore what you actually are doing or what you were doing and what you're able to do now. And all you're doing is related to time. That is the most equal thing we have actually, that every day starts with a new 24 hours for everyone. The thing is, what do we fill the 24 hours with? I have been doing I have been doing research on diaries to explore what people actually do. So, to me, it is a prerequisite to better understand the connection between what people do on a daily basis and the relationships to their health and well-being. We need to understand what they actually do. And this is a task or something that occupational therapists should put a lot of energy into, I think, to find ways to explore or make people describe or understand how and what they're doing in their everyday life. I have, in my previous, this is old research, but I have done studies on women in working age, living together with another adult. They worked more than 50%, which means that they were part of the workforce, and they did have at least one child in preschool age and no child younger than that. I interviewed 100 women to get some kind of general idea about how people's life do look, or what people or what women are doing. And the women that I interviewed were well women. They were not on sick leave. It doesn't mean that they did not have any diagnosis or problems or trouble in their everyday life. They were just as we all are. We have our challenges, more or less, everyone. And I decided to interview women, since women are, or yes, they are, in Sweden at least, a risk group for developing ill health due to complexity in their everyday life. So what I wanted to do to understand is how the everyday life is organized or structured, and the relationships to health. And I just had to identify one group, so I studied women, but I think we can generalize this. I know that we can generalize this research to a lot of different groups in society. What I have been studying is patterns of occupations. And patterns of daily occupations is, to me, built up by building blocks in the shape of all occupations and sleep, performed by one individual during one day and one night in a 24-hour cycle. This is my definition of a pattern of daily occupations. And the question is, how does it look, and how do people experience pattern of daily occupations? I did a lot of, I collected a lot of data, and I did a lot of analysis on the data, so I will not tell you about that. I will tell you about the results, and one result is that I found 3 different categories of occupations, or 3 different ways of describing the occupations in everyday life. And what I saw that, or I know that we have main occupations in our daily life. The main occupations are the ones that are dominating in time and awareness. The main occupations are the occupations that we tell each other about. When you will tell people tonight, hopefully, or tomorrow, you will tell them that you participated in a webinar together with South Hampton or Lund University. That is hopefully one of your main occupations today. And you don't tell people about all the other things you do. We tell about a couple of main occupations. And if you just ask people what they're doing, and they tell you about the main occupations, you should be aware that there are a lot of occupations not mentioned. The occupations that are not mentioned are the ones that I call the hidden occupations. The hidden occupations belongs to the pattern, needs to be there. They are a prerequisite for the main occupations. They provide the stability and rhythm in the daily pattern of occupations. The hidden occupations are the ones that having a cup of coffee in the morning, in a morning break, or a cup of tea, it is in South Hampton, I assume, and to fill up gas in the car, to park your bike when you arrive to school, and to buy some milk on your way back from school to have, or some groceries for your dinner in the evening. that is hidden occupations that you do every day, and you're not aware of the importance of them. They're just being performed. They are actually the ones that are the most gray ones. Then we also have unexpected occupations. And unexpected occupations, they occur in the pattern of daily occupations, and they may also interrupt the ongoing rhythm between main and hidden occupations. Unexpected occupations might be good ones that actually brings joy and happiness to your everyday life. It's when the doorbell rings and there's a friend come to visit that you didn't expect, which means that you cannot study as you had planned in the evening. You have to fill the evening hours together with this friend. And maybe the unexpected occupation, if it's really fun, it might become or turn into a main occupation. But it might also be that you are very late to school and you're supposed to take the train, and the train is not coming. Then it is an unexpected occupation that forces you to solve the problem or solve the situation in any way. And then the unexpected occupation becomes a stressful event that actually threatens the rhythm and stability in your everyday pattern. And then we also have sleep, of course. We have this his name is Oliver, if you're wondering. And he sleeps during day and night because he's a cat. He's not a human being, but he is very good at sleeping. So sleep is the fourth category in pattern of daily occupations. It's main occupations, hidden occupations, and eventually unexpected occupations. And then we have sleep. So these 4 categories are building up a pattern in your everyday life. And you can see it as a branch on a tree that is having a couple of, or quite a few leaves actually, and these leaves are organized in a certain order. And you also know that the hidden occupations will come back the next day a little bit quite similar in the same rhythm as they occurred today. And then you have main occupations that also mostly in the everyday gray everyday life, the main occupations are the same. However, the relationship between main and hidden occupations may change. And what happens then? If you become ill, what happens with the main occupations? Do anyone want to fill in? Is there anyone in South Hampton? We cannot hear South Hampton. No. Yes. So you can discuss this and just ignore me. But does anyone have an idea in this here in Lund? What happens if you get, yes?
Maybe you will become aware of the hidden occupations.
Oh, there's a microphone running towards you.
Maybe you will become aware of the hidden occupation that you were taking for granted.
Yes. You're taking, since we're taking the hidden occupations for granted, we don't know the impact they have on our health. But the day when we might need twice or 3 times as long for performing the hidden occupations might demand that you are aware of what you're doing, and they might dominate in time. And what happens to your health then? And what happens to the previous main occupations? You have no clue. Or Lisa?
No, I'm just handing this.
No.
You can probably not perform your main occupations.
You cannot perform your main occupations because there are no time for the main occupations anymore. Because you need to put all your time and awareness in the hidden occupations. And what happens then? Then you lose, but the main occupations might be your professional work occupations. The occupations that actually give you a role, that actually have the main occupations that are connected with to having a task in the society or a role in the society, a relation to other people, you're helping out in any way or some way. And instead you need to put all your energy in on getting up in the morning, getting breakfast, and actually go to bed again. So the gray every day that you ignored or that you thought were, or you could take for granted, is suddenly not taken for granted anymore. And there's a risk that you will lose the important occupations that are occupations that you need for being yourself. So this is where I think occupational therapists are having a very important role in this situation, to prevent people from developing new or worse ill health due to the imbalance that occurs when there's a change between main and hidden occupations due to illness or injury or contextual or societal changes. And you might, or we might, use this knowledge in order to actually reverse or reorganize again to get the structure or to get the previous main occupations back into the pattern, or at least some of them. And which one are we going to choose, or which one is the client going to choose to put back into the pattern of daily occupations. In my studies, I've shown that there's a difference in health between if you have a lot of or a traffic jam or not a traffic jam in your everyday life. I show that to have, well, you don't know what this is, but this is graphs that are showing what is being done from midnight to midnight, 24 hours. And you have here the categories sleep, main, hidden, and unexpected occupations. And you have the change between different occupations in time. And what I showed in my studies on the 100 women was that there is a limit where the complexity, the shift between hidden and main occupations, the frequency of unexpected occupations in the patterns, where this complexity becomes a risk for developing ill health. And on the other hand, there is a risk on this side, where your complexity in your everyday life is so low, or it's so rare to have a change between the different categories of occupations, that you actually might experience ill health due to that, to a too low complexity. So you need a variation between main and hidden occupations. You actually need unexpected occupations the everyday should not be 100% predictable. You should actually have a variation. You should have interaction with other people that might help you to change your everyday life. But there is a limit for how much you can cope with and how much you can handle. And yes, that was what I said exactly for 10 seconds ago, that interruptions might be a risk for ill health. Too many interruptions might be a risk for developing ill health. And this, as I said, these studies are done on women with living in a working age and living with another adult or having a preschool year child. But I know that this can be generalized to other groups too. So I just want to say something about the micro-perspective, the perspective that is describing the actions building up an occupation. So in the Valmo model, we have patterns in all different levels. We have a life stage pattern, we have a pattern of daily occupations, but we also have patterns building up different all single occupations. And this is a picture of cooking. It's one woman cooking dinner together with her 5-year-old daughter. And on the first top line here, you see the actions belonging to making pasta with a sauce. And here you see the actions more belonging to interacting or being together with a daughter. And here we have actions, other actions connected to other occupations or actions that are actually, or occupations that are built up by only one or two actions, such as going into the dinner table and clean it, taking care of dogs, taking care of laundry. And this family has a lot of dogs, that's why there are a lot of dog tasks. And this blue area here, I try to symbolize where the mother and the child are making the pasta together with this pasta machine. The daughter is turning the machine and the mother is putting the dough into the machine. Here we have the same woman doing the same occupation in the same kitchen. The main difference here is that she's alone in the kitchen. And you can see that here are the tasks or the actions connected to cooking. And she's making a break in her action sequence, talking to her husband at one time. And here she's actually talking to him without stopping doing what she was doing. She's also yelling at her dogs at one time, and she's leaving the kitchen to take a phone call. But the rest of the time she's doing all the actions connected to cooking dinner to the family. And I hope you can see the difference between the two patterns. Can you that? So what pattern or what Wednesday, these are Wednesdays, what Wednesday cooking do you think she liked the best? This one or this one? It's a woman working full-time, having 3 children. The youngest one is a 5-year-old daughter. They have 3 dogs, I think, a number of cats, 2 horses, and a bird. What do you think? Is this her ideal performing or pattern in performing cooking dinner, or is it this one? Guess. Well,
The second one.
The second one, this one is the best one. Yes. You're assuming from knowing how her life is. I can tell you that her life is mostly like this. And it's also even more complicated because this is still, it's not arranged, but it's she and her daughter were aware of me studying them. So it might be even more complex than this. And this one is actually very rare. And the main reason why it looks like this is that I put a video camera in the kitchen. And no one wanted to be part of the film. So that's a tip. If you want to, or tips, if you want to create an environment where you can do occupations connected to one, the actions connected to one occupation from start to end, put a video camera there and say it's research. It's a very good, or I learned it in this study that this is effective. So the important thing here, except for that good thing to know, is that there's of course a different experience in this occupation compared to the other one. Here she could actually go into the occupation and experience all the actions. She told me later that she was actually playing a lot in this here when she realized that she had a time of her own in the kitchen. So she started to do more creative things with a dish than she had expected to do. Of course, she cannot do it here. Here, it's just that the dish needs to be done. So the pattern in every single occupation might impact on health. And it might be of importance for occupational therapists to actually understand how people are doing their occupations, how their actions are developed in single occupations. For instance, we have occupations that we talk about or say that they are relaxing or healthy or fun. You know it by the label. For instance, going fishing is a relaxing occupation. Don't you think so? Should be, or we think it is. The thing is that if you are bringing your mobile phone and taking all the important phone calls during the fishing, and maybe there's not that many fish, so you start to read your emails. You can do that out in the sea today. And you can also have friends together with you or children that demands your attention. Or it might be that you suddenly there's a storm coming in or whatever. The relaxing occupation don't need to be relaxing just because it's labeled as a relaxing occupation. It is up to you or to the individual to actually arrange the occupation to give health and well-being if that is what you want it to give. The same thing with a fun occupation. You know, going by roller coasters and things like that. That's really fun. Or go to the movies. That's really fun. But if you go to a movie and you are interrupted the whole time by someone sitting in front of you being tall and eating a lot of chips or whatever, making a lot of noise, then the fun experience in the movie theater is not there. So it will be a 1.5 hour of annoying experiences. It's very important that we help each other to organize the occupations that are going to be performed, to be organized and actually being possible to perform the way that we want them to be performed. And if the issues that you will meet when you see people from, or when you meet clients, if their issues issues are related to a need to reorganize the daily occupations or the patterns of daily occupations. Then people need to do different or various, to a various extent, changes in their life, everyday life. It might be that they need to change parts of the road. They might take a completely new road, or they might need to change their traveling, the goal for their travel completely on a macro level. So what you can do as occupational therapist is to support this reorganization, redesigning of daily life. You can support it, you can be the guide. And another factor that is very important to not forget is that you need time. And time is hard to find in clinical practice today. It's hard to find between people, in relationships, to find time, but you need to be aware that time is extremely important here. It is very hard to change a habit, and it is extremely hard to change or reorganize your whole everyday life. And that is not a thing that you can do easily from one day to another. It doesn't help to get to meet the occupational therapist at one occasion. You need to follow or be a support or guide for the client for quite a while. And humans are social beings. We live in forests, which means that we also need to be helped by our social context. If you are the one, or the client is the one that is going to change his or her everyday life, that will impact on other people's life. So even if we want or need to change our everyday life, this cannot be done if we don't get help from or understanding from our social context. And that is very important. And I have the impression that it's very often that occupational therapists direct their interest and their guidance to the individual. But the individual is always connected to some kind of context. And the context needs to know what is going to be done, why, and how the person or the people around the person can change. So what I have been talking about is, from my perspective, the power of occupation. We can change by guide people or tell them and educate them about everyday life. We can make branches without occupation, without leaves, to become fresh and well trees again, like now during the springtime. But we can also work not only with individuals. There are actually groups in the society that are facing or are at risk of developing ill health, and we can help or guide people or subgroups, societies, to have a better life, for them, better pattern of daily occupations. To conclude, the same occupations may generate different experiences, and that means that the same occupation might be generating health, but it might also be a risk for developing ill health. It's not the occupation, how it's labeled, that says that this is good for a person or this is not good for a person. It depends on where it's located in the pattern of daily occupations. It depends on if it's going to be there still or if it's going to be removed or replaced by something else. To reorganize organize the daily pattern of occupations may enhance health. And in my research, I have shown that it seems, or that it is effective to guide people to do their own changes instead of telling them what would be good for them, because we don't know what people experience and we don't know how people want to or what needs they have in their pattern of daily occupations. It needs to come from the individual, him or herself. And we have to incorporate people around the individual that needs to be that needs to change their everyday life. So occupational therapy should not be directed to individuals one-sided. We should also incorporate the context around the individual. So I've been talking about, or departing from, women's everyday life and women's pattern of daily occupations. But I want to say that I think that this issues the fact that we have main, hidden and unexpected occupation is something that is general. It's general for people in different life stages. It's the same for men and women. It's the same for elderly people and as for children. It's the same for people in different cultures or subcultures. The thing is that we all have different patterns, but we all have patterns. And I just want to end with this picture because I think it's a challenging picture. It is graduation for monks. I don't know if you can see it. I see it very well in my computer. It's some kind of occasion, which means that these young men are being graduate or as monks in some way. And you can see this is also a pattern. And in this occupation, every individual is a part of a large, large pattern. And I think that is a challenging picture to end this lecture with, saying that we are having different patterns and we are also part of patterns. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lena-Karin, for a most interesting lecture, giving us some knowledge about your very interesting research. And I would just love to hear more about this. Another time, another lecture. Yes. I think Lisa has told me that if you have any questions to Lena-Karin, because I think we do have some time before you start with your different groups, group activities, you can text Lisa, is that what you said? Mm. You can text Lisa and she will forward the question to Lena-Karin. And I also hope that you students here in Lund, if you have any questions, you can have the question in Swedish if you like, or just anything? No? No Swedish questions. I just thought perhaps, okay, no Swedish questions. Anything at all that you would like to ask Lena-Karin while she's here?
I will start with a question from South Hampton.
Okay.
They asked about the diagram of the Valmo model. If you can go back to that page. Yes. It said P, T, and E.
P is that is the categories of occupations that we have decided that there are 4 categories of occupations in the Valmo model. That is play, recreation, maintenance, and work occupations. And then it's sleep. So what we have tried to do here is to make the pattern differ from early childhood, where you have a lot of more sleep, some play, and then it gradually changes into the adult pattern of daily occupations, where we have paid work intervened with maintenance occupations, some recreational occupations, a little less play, because adult people don't recognize that they play, but we think that they do. And then when you turn into the older ages, then the maintenance and sleep and recreation will be more frequent than play and, of course, work occupations. So that's what the small letters means.
Yeah, now you explained the patterns of the different occupations. And not the categorizations of the different occupations.
Yeah. Oh, you mean
I think they asked
PTE.
what PTE.
Oh, I see that. Oh, that's another thing that I just skipped. I skipped a couple of aspects of this model. PTE is person, task, environment. And that is actually the definition that comes before everything, and I didn't have the time to include it. So you have to read the article to see the important thing about person, task, and environment. But what we do in the Valma model is that we define occupation as when someone is doing something somewhere. And that means that we distinguish between occupation and task. So tasks are the things that we talk about when we say, for instance, when I was talking about fishing, we were all assuming that fishing is something that you do in relation to some water, and you might have a fish. That's sort of the goal of fishing, even if there are now people that are fishing just to get the fish and then brings it back to the water. You've seen that, haven't you? That is a new way of fishing. I didn't know this, but that is what people do nowadays. So that the task is fishing, but the occupation is if I go to Lagan, which is or Nissan, which are the rivers that I live close to, and I have this. What is that?
Fishing rod.
Yes, the tool to get into the water, and then I try to get a fish and I won't get any fish. That's me fishing. That's the occupation. So the task is when we all talk about fishing, and some of you are doing it from a boat outside Barsebäck in Sweden, outside Lund, in the sea, and some of us are doing it in a lake or close to a lake or to a river, and as a weekend trip together with the family, or actually as work. So that's the difference, or the important difference between task and occupation. So what we're trying to show here is that every performance of a task is in an occupation. When an individual is performing a task somewhere at some time, then it becomes an occupation, and all occupations gives us experiences, and that is in our model described as occupational value. That's the red area here, which I will not tell you about either. That's because you need to read the article.
So Southampton, if you have any more questions, you just email them to me. And the Swedish students, if you would like to ask something, please do. I think it's really a good inspiration for the coming discussion. And maybe this is not really a forum for a lot of discussions, but you will continue that in the groups. We have a question here. Hold on.
Yeah, you said that in both men and women, we use less time for
Maintenance.
home and family activities. What do we do instead?
I think we watch TV, read our emails, go and have coffees together with friends, take care of, I don't know what we do actually. I think TV and emails and surfing on or gaming on the internet is taking more and more time, even among the grown-up population. And it's not my own assumption that we're doing less. It's what you can see when you compare the time surveys that are done each 10 year in Sweden. And then you can see that women, they have decreased their time in home, caring for home and children. And then you would expect the men or the other adult living together with the first one, that person would increase, so that we will do the same amount of hours taking care of our home, but that's not the case. So the women is decreasing their hours, and the men are, well, increasing a bit, but not as much. So I think that we have we also buy more things or buy services, and we don't need to do that much anymore.
Thank you. I think we have a follow-up question from Southampton.
More about the PT?
No, about why women in Sweden are considered high risk for ill health.
Yeah.
They wonder.
Oh, that's a long answer to that. We know that Swedish women are in working age are having a much higher level of sick leave, and they're also more health consumers or healthcare consumers than men are. And they are more having more long-term sick leave. And one explanation, there are a lot of different explanations to why this is the case, but one explanation is that women are by tradition in a more complex everyday life, due to they still have the main responsibility for caring for home and family, but they also working in paid work to a much higher extent than before. And they also work in professions that are actually quite high complex, meaning that they are interacting with a lot of other people. They are working in caring professions or teaching professions, which means that they take care of other ill people or young people. And that is stressful professional work. And then they also have the most complex pattern of choice of occupations in their home situations. That is one explanation of why women are at higher risk for developing ill health, and also are having a higher ill health rate than men are.
Thank you. They're also asking a research method question.
Okay.
You mentioned that you were something happened in the activity when you were in the kitchen filming.
The video great. The video great.
The video, yeah. So they wonder how do you manage bias in your research when you are in the same room as the participants?
Yeah. I should first say that, of course, this is really, you only get a glimpse of what I have been doing. This is just what I'm using as to illustrate what I want to say. And I didn't tell you about the whole study giving these patterns, and I didn't tell you about the study that actually developed the main hidden and unexpected occupations. So, of course, there was this, the pattern that I showed for, well, it's somewhere here, the pattern with an occupation, performed occupation. It's here. This study was performed on one woman 4 Wednesdays in a row, and I have patterns from, I was really doing a case study trying to explore what she was doing. What I am, of course, biased there, or this study is a case study. It's not a study that claims to be generalizable to other cases, but I know by experience now, because it was a long time ago I did this, and I know by experience that people can or recognize their own doing when they see these illustrations.
Mm. Thank you. And in a short while, in 5-10 minutes, I think the first groups will start their discussion. And I would just like to send with you to discuss a bit about how the patterns of daily occupation changes. For you Swedish students, you've been focusing on when people are growing older, when they experience illness, maybe if they move into a nursing home, what happens with their patterns of daily occupations, and especially cultural activities they have, what happens with them when they change environment, what happens with religious activities if you come to a nursing home that doesn't have room for that, maybe. So I think we need to close down and continue the discussions in the small groups. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.